Yeah, it's okay. Interesting 4 days. Obviously, we were pretty shocked when we got the message from Tommy, saying severe back injury, can't move, dismasted, and then nothing for about 18 hours or something. That was pretty scary. And then you've got a job to do. You just get on with the job of crisis management. Gregor had already lost his mast. But at the same time, in the background, they're family. We know, they're like really super duper close friends. So there's always that emotional aspect as well. And it was a lot of work, a lot of long hours and sleeping in the office and all that sort of stuff. But it's pretty much all over now. We're wound down, so we're fine. What kind of family? No, I'm a wild card. I didn't get on with my father at all. In fact, we, didn't see eye to eye on anything. Very close to my mother. I have a brother and a sister. My brother had worked for the same company for his entire life, and very, great guy, but just ordinary. 2 kids. That's it. Just lived the suburban life. And my sister was a corporate high flyer, never married. Was personal assistant to some very famous people. And that's it. I was the different one. I was always out doing different things, and pretty just a big kid enjoying adventure and so on. So it's a very ordinary, average family. We were just middle class family. I'm the youngest. That's hard to say. Because it's over such a long period of time. The most difficult moment. That's a challenge one. Difficult means a hard job. And in the BOC. In the BOC challenge, I had a jam up on my furling head sail in the middle of not a storm, but it was blowing 30 to 35 knots. The sheet was jammed in it, so the sail was half furled. One sheet broke. I had it pulled out, and I couldn't get the sail in. I couldn't get it out, and it was flopping back and forward so much, I thought it might actually pull the mast down. It was scary. It took me about 2 hours to solve that problem, and I couldn't stop working. I was exhausted. Finally solved it, but that was the most difficult thing that comes to mind. Fun, love, caring, never go without one. Catching a fish on the jetty, a little tiny fish at Second Valley, first fish. My first boat, Sunshine, which was a replica of Suhaili. That's the first boat I ever built. I never finished it. I sold it partway through when my girlfriend walked out. It's just another planet. There's nowhere. It's bigger than the pictures, bigger than everything. It's just another planet. Nightmare, absolute nightmare. Never had anything like it. The pain is unreal. Absolute hero, inspiration. I admired him when I first heard of him, and I still admire him to this very day. Absolute gem of a person, a real young lady, and a dreamer that just achieved everything. Classic fighter, she just pushed herself to the extreme, not on the ocean, just to get to the oceans. Aries wing veins, they're fantastic. Love them to pieces. A bit of a problem, too many gadgets and adjustments. Yeah, really cool, sensible unit and perfect for the GGR. A nightmare. Too many, too hard and too old. Go away from them. Oh, you need to sleeve it, make it nice and strong. It's a critical part of the mast. Absolute necessary and pure heaven. A bit of a nightmare for me. I don't like them, but I've never had to use them. So no, I actually find the recreation of historic, activities a unique challenge, and it just pits you against what they were doing, and it's real exploration rather than just pure adventure, because you can relate yourself to what they're doing. You have their logs and you can see what's happening. So I get off on that. I get a kick from it. So yeah, you're right. I have done other similar things in history, that attracted me. Well, it's all about recreating and celebrating Sir Robert Knox-Johnson and Suhaili. That's one very important part. So these boats are similar in concept. That's part of it. And if you're going to have an event, you've got to have a competition. So they need to be roughly similar, the different styles, the different types of boats. So that's, otherwise you put a multi-hull in it and the race is over. People won't understand it. Or if you put a 60-footer in amongst 35-footers, it just all gets messed up. So it doesn't work. So that's the basis of it. And we know those boats are really strong and solid rudders. Keels aren't going to fall off. The hull's not going to collapse, things like that. Well, basically it got too big too quick, and someone had to manage it. I never expected it to get this big. So You know, we're paying for everything, and you know, so it had to be me. That's the bottom line. So I was disappointed, but at the same time I was excited because we were creating something from nothing. So literally, the management of the race became my new adventure, and that's the only reason I'm pouring so much money into it. I mean, when I went and lived in Antarctica for a year, cost us about $800,000. You know, all my adventures have cost money. The BOC cost me, you know, we cash flowed about $700,000. This race is costing us half of everything we own. So, but this is my personal adventure, I suppose, and you know, you can't race it and organise it at the same time. I learnt that from Philippe Jonteau when he did the first Vendée Globe. You know, I knew Philippe reasonably well back then, and he said, you know, it was his biggest mistake to organise and sail in the first Vendée Globe. Well, it's not relevant. To put it simply, we have world's best practice safety gear, world's best practice communications gear, which is restricted day to day, but in an emergency it all opens up, and the training of entrants. So the two don't mix. They're totally irrelevant. You know, I don't see a problem with that at all. Okay, we have, in safety equipment style, we have some things that the Vendée Globe doesn't even have. We have everything. We have the world's best practice and safety gear. Well, I was getting anxious watching this storm form up, and 4 hours before the trouble, I did a live on Facebook talking about the storm and saying these are going to be some of the dangerous seas that you will ever see, and it was correct. 4 hours later, we hear from Gregor. He's lost his mizzen mast. An hour later, he's been rolled over and lost his main mast as well. And an hour after that, we hear from Tomy. He's, you know, the big drama. So it was all in quick succession, and Mark Slatz was still out there doing it tough. Well, I'm head of the crisis management team. Then we have 3 watch leaders that run an 8-hour shift, so to speak, with assistants behind that. We have a volunteer team of about 14 locals here in the Sable d'Olonne. It's fantastic. And they're all on standby. You know, there's a procedure. We've got a set manual, you know, crisis management manual. We've planned it. We've done, you know, we've done a couple of what I call live exercises, you know, simulating the various things that might happen and calling people as if we're in a crisis before this event. So it all went reasonably smooth. And professionally, I've been involved with crisis management and crisis management planning, risk assessment. I've rescued people. I've been involved with all sorts of different stuff. So it's a bit more of the same, but this time it's a lot closer because it's the GGR family, you know. Yeah, you know, I'm getting good feedback. The entrants are admitting to me, wow, you know, this is amazing. I didn't realise how important some of these aspects were. And so we've had a few different examples where all of a sudden, for the entrants, it all makes a lot of sense. In this incident just recently, it's at the end of the world. You know, we were saying just before it all happened, this is now the danger zone. You're as far as you can get from anywhere. And it was the worst possible scenario. So, you know, and then the entrants usually are the ones that assist each other. And, of course, Gregor was the only one able to, but he'd lost his mast. So he put up his pre-planned jury rig, you know, that we talked about a long time ago, and was desperate to get to Tomy. But fortunately, the fisheries survey boat was close as well and just pipped him to the mark, you know. No, he had a recent report saying that we told him he had to go around. What we said was we notified Mark that Abhilash was in trouble, and I said, if possible, make your way to that area. Okay, and that went to both Mark and also Uku. And I spoke to Gregor as well on the phone when he was ringing, you know, in the trouble. And then when we looked at Mark's position, he was still in the middle of the gale. He couldn't do anything then. And by the time he came out of the gale, there was no way he could get back. So I sent him another message, stand down, just carry on. We're using Iridium 9555 models. They're not the most advanced that are completely waterproof with trackers and all that sort of stuff. But unfortunately, those latest models have a GPS readout which couldn't be modified. Well, you know, I mean, I think the decision is entirely left to the individual in the circumstances. So I'm a bit either way. Normally, you would, you know, if it was me out there, you start from a level of saying you must scuttle the boat, and then there are other factors which can alter that on the day, depending on the real situation. And in Tommy's case, there is a realistic possibility it may be salvaged by the Indian Navy. And in Gregor's case, he was advised very clearly by the master of the Osiris not to do it because it was in a maritime park and it was against international law. So probably if Gregor hadn't have asked the question and advised them and just sunk it, then it would have been okay. But once you're given that instruction, so be it. You can't go against that. I'm not sure. I mean, the boat will drift probably for a long time. He buttoned it up before he left, and the AIS is working, and the tracker will work indefinitely as well. So we'll be watching progress of the boat in the months ahead and just see what happens. Personally, I think the risk is very low of an impact with another vessel, but nonetheless, people win the lottery. I haven't seen the reports of Sir Robin. He has been talking extensively to the media, supporting all the rescue efforts and so on. But unfortunately, I've been so busy, I haven't seen some of his reporting. I know he follows the race very closely. We get messages between each other often and so on. He's a great supporter of the GGR. He's not officially involved. He's just a great friend. So I can't comment because I haven't seen his reports. We have the ability to, make decisions based on safety or on best judgment. So potentially all of them can be done, but obviously we need to justify that. And there is a process we use in every occasion. Well, I've never used one. And I really have no comment, but I can tell you now, I dread the thought of the day I have to use a drogue. I think they can be dangerous. They have a place in certain occasions, but the number of people that I've heard that have nearly lost fingers, legs, arms, really stressing and struggling and things like that, and the number of reports that I see of people using a drogue because they think they have to, because they've read about it in a magazine article, and you look at that occasion, you say that's completely wrong use of the drogue. It's a very interesting subject, and I'm glad that the GGR is bringing it up more. It needs to be discussed. My feeling is there is no right and wrong. Again, it's up to the skipper on scene on that day. But I've got to say, I'm not a big fan of drogues and even warps. But I will say I have not been in the Southern Ocean in GGR-style boats, okay? So I'm not really qualified to comment, but I'm a great believer of keeping the boat moving, and I think you'll find Jean-Luc has never towed warps, never streamed a drogue, and I think you'll probably find he has one on board, but he's sort of saying, oh, what for? And that's one of the reasons he moves so well in a storm, and I think we'll find, well, it's an interesting subject, but it's up to the skipper to make a choice. You can be used in adaptation for an emergency steering system, okay, to help steer the boat. They can be used if you're on a lee shore and you're getting blasted downwind to slow the boat up because you can't go down there. If you can't be in the cockpit and you don't have a wind vane to help you steer, and you have to do anything, I would never ever hove to in the Southern Ocean. And the only option you've got, and this is something that people forget, the first option is a tiny sail up forward, pulling the boat and let the boat go. If you have problems with that, you could start to also be assisted by creating some sort of a drag. It wouldn't be a drogue. Drogues are dangerous. Once you set them, it's a nightmare to pull them in. Of the two choices between warps and a drogue, I would go warps every time because you can pull it in easy. You can pull one side in, you've got 50% ratio straight away, a lot less drag. And, drogues can, the loads involved are phenomenal. They're dangerous, and this is just my personal opinion, But as I say, this is through analysis. I've never ever set a warp, and I've never ever set a drogue in earnest. Okay. It's fantastic. I've seen it in operation. It really works. Yeah. It is, but it's impractical. You can't carry enough vegetable oil to make it practical. You don't need a lot of oil, but if you've got a small boat and moving around, you're going to cover ground, and it's unfortunately you can't carry enough oil. Those storms can go for a long time. So it's not practical, but it does work. Well, that's my opinion. I respect Mark a lot. He did some, he was terrified in this recent storm, and he was working hard to work out what the best thing is to do. We had a safety phone call from him, and a lengthy one, and we discussed many things. This was after the storm, just a day or so ago. And he concluded in the end he got rid of his warps, and the boat was handling a lot better. you need a small, tiny sail up the front of the boat to keep pulling from the front and keep the boat moving, keep everything active and go for it. But his Aries was working at that stage. So, that's the next complication. If you don't have a wind vane, you really need someone in the cockpit steering, So each situation is completely different. I don't mind. Yeah, I don't mind. Anything that's over the radio is absolutely free. They just can't use their satellite phone or they're knocked out, and radios are it. But there are some things that I don't like about this edition of the GGR and the way the rules work. Only one thing, and that's the access to what I call, Windy TY or Predict Wind, the weather programs. It is legal. Anything that's freely available to the public and transmitted over the radio is free. The only thing that's banned is routing. But the information you can get by talking to someone that's looking at Windy TY is as good as routing. So that's going to be banned in 2022. There's no need to check because anyone can cheat if they want to cheat.
Okay.
I'm fine. We said from the very beginning, when I say fine, we're really disappointed that Tommy and Gregor are out because the three-way battle or the four-way battle between Mark Slats, Tommy, Gregor and Uku, it was fantastic to watch, having a Suhaili replica, having a Biscay 36, a Rustler 36, and Mark was in trouble, I got a feeling that Tommy was going to take him out, It was great to watch, and that was the essence, that was a real spark for the GGR. And now we're back to Jean-Luc, Mark Slats, Uku further back, and then the others. So that's disappointing, but the GGR is all about staying power, great seamanship, all those sorts of things, and we still have a great race. No one's ever seen anything like this event before for 50 years, and I always said, well, I've got asked a lot, how many are going to finish the race? And I was thinking, well, if half finish the race, I'll be very happy, right? And probably about a third might make it. Let's wait and see. And I said literally only, a week or so ago to one journalist, how many are going to finish? And I said, well, we're down to 10. And the law of averages simply says that we'll probably lose another 2 by the time, by the finish. Well, we just lost our 2, so let's hope we don't lose any more or we're going to be wrong. Well, it's a very interesting question. And, if we think if I think something involves in safety, then we speak up. Or if it's in race rules, we speak up. In interpretation of performance and choice of equipment and the way people set boats up, whether they have halyards at the mast or in the cockpit or things like that, it's entirely up to the entrant. And we also have an independent third-party surveyor that has to go all over the boat and confirm to us that in his opinion the boat is seaworthy and capable of ocean work. Another independent rig check from an independent third-party rigger comes through and gives us a full rig survey and says, yes, the rig's good to go. So we leave that stuff to the entrants. Some of the entrants confide in me and ask for advice, and I give it when they ask it. And I advised some people on some equipment, and maybe they would have listened, and they'd still be in the race. But not saying I'm smart or clever or anything, but there were some decisions that I thought, wow, that's just not going to work, and it didn't, But sometimes I tell them, sometimes I don't. It just depends. And they don't have to listen to me. They don't listen to me anyway half the time. He's got a lot of experience, okay? And when he told me he'd shortened the mast by 1.5 meters, it was like, whoa, I would never have thought of that. But it's right when you think about it. He did all the testing and it worked out he would be reefed after 10 knots. So why carry the extra weight aloft? And then if he hasn't got that weight at the top, he could decrease the size of the section, and it meant that the rigging was stronger effectively and all sorts of things. And it may be a smart move. So he thinks outside the box. Is really interesting. You've got to respect everything that he does. It's really God, look at it. He's so far in front, it's crazy. Well, he was only talking to his manager on the radio for the first few weeks. After that, it's been the standard ham radio weather reports, in French. But Jean-Luc has a lot of experience. I'll tell you now, he spent a long time. You have to stop weather routing 1 month before the start of the race, okay? So right up to that 1 month period, because I was here, we talked about it, I was living in his house, and he was working with a weather router for weeks. talking about the trip and what sort of things should happen, and that was all part of his decision, Grace. He and I both work on a very simple formula, and I've used it since I was 21, okay, on everything I've done. And people don't get it. You know, all the things I've done, they say, how can you do this? Da, da, da. It's all about planning, preparation, and execution. If you miss any of those three things, you've got a problem. If you get all of those things right, you're going to have a reasonably good chance of achieving what you set out to do. I see some of the things going on in the GGR, and they haven't done good planning or good preparation or good execution, and they're not there now. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. I'm just saying that's critical. You've got to spend a lot of time planning. You've got to make all the right decisions on equipment and the way you do things and all that sort of stuff. Then you've got to prepare right and do all your training and so on. And then you've got to sail it right. Jean-Luc's got all three right. But the other thing I would throw in there is always this thing in the GGR or any other adventure. Sometimes, as long as it's safe, it's better to go with what you've got than not go at all. And so I fully understand, like Tapio, I really admire his courage and determination and passion. He knew he was late. He knew he had problems getting it all together at the last minute, but he's still there and he's still sailing. You've got to respect that kind of passion. So, you know, it's a very complicated argument, but Jean-Luc at the moment has got everything exactly right. He's still got a long way to go, but, you know, it's a hard act to follow. Yeah, absolutely. The guys in 2022 have got a huge advantage. If they're watching what's going on and listening to all our reports and discussions and our question and answer sessions on the weekends and things like that, it's all there in a book. In fact, I get so many people saying, oh, you're going to put all this in a book? This is fantastic. You know, and all that stuff. I've got a bit too many things on at the moment, but you know, there's a lot of really valuable things happening here, and a lot of, you know, the following now is growing quite substantially. And I think ordinary sailors are getting some real interesting insights into many things. Okay, there's not a lot. They're all trivial little things. The only major one, there's a different start sequence because we're separating and celebrating, you know, Bernard Matessier and Joshua in 2022. But the biggest one is access to weather information. That's a big change. You know, we're keeping it very simple. We will put a new mark in the course for the South Atlantic. Trinidadi will have to be left to port, so all the boats won't have the option to start going down through the middle. They've got to go over to Trinidadi and around, and I think that will look after the boats better and make it more enjoyable for the sailor rather than having to go through that whole tactical issue in the middle. And the rest of, you know, we're banning vinyl wraps on boats, and, you know, we're looking at some environmental issues, and the rest of it's pretty much the same. It's only minor changes everywhere. Okay. Well, it's not. You know, the bottom line is that I'll give you two examples. We have done everything possible to minimise and mitigate the risk, okay? Contrary to what the FFV said to us when they first heard about the race, the French Maritime Administration here, who gives us the permits to run the race, reviewed our notice of race, and they very clearly stated to us that our notice of race is the best they have ever seen for any yachting event in France. I don't need to mention names. They told us that the safety and security arrangements are very appropriate, and you don't get any better than that, right? The problem is people take it as a quick grab and they don't understand the fine detail. These boats are very secure designs, right? So they need to look further. It's easy to take a cheap shot if you haven't read the notice of race and understand what it is. This event is fine, and right now, after this incident at the moment, we're getting nothing but good reports from all of the important organisations. It was a very unfortunate accident that happened to Tommy. I can assure you that if Tommy wasn't injured, both Gregor and Tommy right now would be on their way to Australia under jury rig, fully independent of the storm. Once you get an injury, though, you're buggered, and that's sad. But we are so happy that the international community got together and got him out of this. Gregor's was a controlled evacuation. You know, he was never in distress, never asked for assistance. He was trying to help Tommy and had to make a very difficult decision because the rescue boats were there for Tommy. If he had sailed on now and got into trouble, he would have been considered to be reckless. So he had to make the difficult decision to abandon his boat. No, never. I've never lost anyone, never been rescued, never had trouble getting back from anything that I ever set out on. I was the organiser and founder of the 1988 Round Australia Yacht Race, and we lost one entrant in that race. One of the entrants, one of the crew fell off a boat and was lost, but that's about it. Only in the sense that we're all family, so you lose a family member. But, I've got to say, they're all GGR family, and, they're there because of the risk. If there was no risk in this event, none of these sailors would be there. They're all risk takers, but they're responsible risk takers, and that's the challenge. That's the satisfaction. That's what the adventure is. And they all know about that. They all accept that, and that's called using your life in the best possible way. So I'm celebrating their adventure, and I'm celebrating in a strange sort of way the challenges that are before them, and they know that. That's what they want to do. Here we go. This is my biggest problem now. I'm bringing it up because, it's really, I'm getting a lot of that at the moment. Saying, if you do the race, who's going to do all this? Who's going to do that? My plan at the moment is that, and I say this with respect, I'm not trying to big note me, but I will concede that I've had diverse experience over the last 40 years. So I can manage commentary, I can manage technical issues, and so on. But even if it takes 3 people, so if I have a special person that does communications, special person that does race management, special person that does, event, whatever, the plan is hopefully we will get a sponsor for 2022, and we'll have the budget to do that. Right now, I haven't had a payday for 4 years, and we can't afford to have these other people. So I've got to do a lot of things, and Jane backs me up. So we're the 2 leaders in this little team, and there's only really 2 other full-time staff. We have Barry Pickthall, our media manager in England. So it's tough, but, it'll all come down to whether we get some sponsorship. And apart from Le Sable d'Olonne agglomeration this time round, who have been fantastic, managed everything here in Le Sable d'Olonne, starts, finishes, provide our office and our phones and all that sort of stuff, we raised €35,000. That's it. Jane and I are paying for the rest of it. And it'll all come down to money. I hate to say it. And I've got my boat half built. I've got no money to finish it at the moment, so we need a sponsor so I can get some money back to finish my boat for 22. No one's paying us, so we're just paying out. No, we live on a little island in Tonga, an island called Namuka Iki, and that's where the Royal Namuka Yacht Club is. That's the host club for the GGR. I'm the Commodore of the Royal Namuka Yacht Club. We have a flagpole. We hope to build a yacht club next year. I've got all the building materials on the island. And I've got a Lagoon 450 catamaran, and that's been our home. But we built a couple of little small cabins on the island, and that's it. So we're looking for some volunteers next year to come and help us on the island. We're not wealthy, as I say, this is a passion for me, and it comes from my belief, my firm belief that adventure is critical to the world, in a lot of different ways. Adventure creates good people when you get out there and do things. You do things you can't learn in a classroom. So my whole passion for pushing adventure, like sponsoring Jessica Watson and lots of other different people, is to spread the word about adventure. It's a good thing. It's very valuable to the community and the world. It's fantastic. I mean, the passion here for these sorts of events is great. I mean, we sensed it about 3 or 4 months before the start of the race. All of a sudden, people could understand what was happening. They started to believe that we were okay, and they started to take ownership of the race in terms of local sailors. Even some of the Monday sailors were saying, "This is cool," and now it's just growing and growing. We've got a great level of support here, and huge amount of volunteers have been involved helping us. And the Sable d'Olonne agglomeration, they're just brilliant. They understand it. They got it really early on, and we'll see that. We haven't decided where it's going to be in 2022, but they've got an option on that. And, we remember our friends. So let's see what happens. But, yeah, this is great. The problem is when you go to the supermarket, they have the best dessert section you can imagine. And I'm sitting behind a computer 16 hours a day. So I think I put on about 4 kilos. No, not at all. In fact, I've got to say, we have been accepted here very warmly and genuinely as an international event. That's part of the attraction. There's some things that the agglomeration of the French people here really like about this race. First of all, it is the opposite end of the spectrum to the Vendée Globe. We love the Vendée Globe. We all do. It's incredible. We love it. So that's right up there. The GGR is right down here. And so they're so different, but they complement each other in so many ways, right? Similar adventure, and one's technology, one's basic. So the issue, we started with 13 countries involved, and that's very important. So we've already put in the notice of race for 22 that we will not accept any more than 7 entrants from any one country, okay? Now, there's another interesting thing happening here. We've opened entries for 22. We're already getting quite a few through the door. And I have to say that the French are lagging behind at the moment. So I think we've already, we will announce the first group of entrants soon. There are only 20 places in the Schuheli class. And I'm starting to worry again how quickly they're filling up. But anyway, we'll have to wait and see. Certainly we have interest in the French, but I think a lot of sailors are thinking, we've got a year or two to decide whether we want to do this thing. Watch this space. I think it's fantastic. And it really is fantastic. There's no question. And again, that's the opposite end of the spectrum to our Golden Globe race. We've never said from the beginning that the GGR is a replica of the original race. We don't have multi-hulls. We have set type boats. It's a GGR event in the spirit of the original GGR. The long route is fantastic because it's for free spirits. You get out there and you're repeating a similar thing. It's not a race like the original Golden Globe race because there's no time limit. You can start and finish whenever you want. There's no one giving prizes at the end. It's a pure, beautiful challenge, and it's a way to celebrate adventure in the spirit of Bernard Matessier and so on. So I think it's fantastic, and I've encouraged a few sailors to do that who couldn't get into the GGR. Their boats weren't right and so on. So I'm a great fan and supporter, but obviously we can't, we've had a few people saying, why don't we put the long route boats on the GGR tracker? And it's like, crikey, it's hard enough to do the interpretation already. We can't confuse the issue. So I think the long route is fantastic. There's no question, and I wish everyone well in the event. And we're all doing a similar sort of thing. I love adventure in any form, in any way, shape, or form. It's fantastic. Well, when I was going to do the recreation of Robin's journey anyway, originally, but I'm a passionate supporter and fierce defender of the freedom of adventure, like to just let anyone get out there and do their own thing, provided they're responsible adventurers, they minimise the risk and so on. You can't have people going out and doing stupid things. But there is a line that you draw here as well. If someone wants to get in a little 7-foot boat and sail across the Atlantic and all that sort of stuff, or do whatever they want, I don't care. Just go and do it. It's fantastic. I support it. It's great. But the moment that you decide you want to get sponsors, or you want to write a blog and you want to do a website and all that sort of stuff, you're entering the international community, and to a degree, you're obligated to meet certain standards, you know what I mean? And that's where I'm also a great supporter of being responsible. And in the case of GGR, it's an organised event, and I'm always conscious there's the GGR race and there's the event. The event's important because it creates a momentum and scope that inspires people because they all hear about it. But the race is the key thing, and that's the sailor. And I will fiercely protect the race, because that's the entrants and the competitors. So you've got the race, you've got the event, and then you've got the sponsors, and that's the priority. And I'll never let it change, because you look at some of the other events and they go, right, the most important one is the sponsor, and then the second most important is the event, and the last bit is the sailors down here, and that's not me. I'm the absolute reverse. So, it's an interesting situation. But, we know where our place is, and I learned a long time ago in business and marketing, if you can't compete, specialise, right? We can't compete because we don't have a sponsor, and our biggest problem is people think we're bigger than we are, and they say, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. So hang on a minute, we've got 4 people running this race, They say, what? Because they think we're huge. The Volvo had 120 employees, excuse me. So, we're different, and, it's challenging at times, but that's what it is.
Okay.
Yes and no. we have to be able to control the entrants for a few different reasons. The first one is that we are legally obligated in many areas. I'm potentially very exposed in terms of liability, for instance. So we have a liability insurance policy, and that policy is attached to that policy is the notice of race. So you have to define the risk. So the notice of race is the rule book. And once we do that, if I don't manage this rule book correctly, then the insurance policy doesn't count, right? Because I've been negligent and I haven't made the entrants do the right thing. That's the first part of that. The second part is that we have strong commitments and personal commitments and legal commitments to the French government, the Maritime Administration and so on, to run this race properly. That's the only way we could start it here. So if we are trying to get all the information on EPIRB hex codes and all the safety gear and radio license and so on, we have to give that at a set time. And if the entrants just think, go to buggery, right, we're in deep trouble. So we have to put these fines down and threaten them with fines to make them do it. Otherwise, we're in trouble. We're running the event. We have to do it. So that's a second way. And so in the end, the biggest fine that we issued was $5,000. It was paid. Another fine was $2,500. It was paid. We hate issuing fines, okay? But if they want to play the game, and remember some of these guys are sponsored, right? And they're in it for their own reasons, and their sponsors are there for commercial reasons. It's important. So I hate it with a passion, running fines, but you have to have some management controls. And the difference is that there were probably every entrant in this race should have been fined 2 or 3 times. We never did. I think we issued a total of 4 or 5 fines because you just feel bad about it. It just doesn't. It's very hard. In the next race, in the application form and the entry form, and everyone's known about fines for this race, but then the next one, I say in the entry form, there's fines, do you agree to pay them if you breach the clauses? And they all have to say yes before they send in their entry form. And so they're now not only aware, because all of our entrants, all the fines were there before they entered the race. Next time round, it'll be more serious because it caused us a lot of problems. We had deadlines that were 2 months behind time, and some of our challenges just weeks before the start were purely because entrants were not doing what they were supposed to be and supporting the administration of the event. Yes, it'll be with Les Sables d'Olonne agglomeration. It's only on 1 or 2 days. So we have no budget to have our own stand there. It's very expensive. So we are joining up with Les Sables d'Olonne agglomeration. They make a presentation to everyone on a particular day, and there's another one, I think it's on a Sunday and the other. So we will be there, but not as a stand for GGR. I mean, we had no budget to go to the Southampton Boat Show. We had no budget to go anywhere. I'll concede one thing. Right now, we are getting a lot of compliments, right? We're getting feedback all over the place. And I suppose this is part of proving yourself. We knew what we could do and we knew how we'd do it and we knew we'd be okay. But, we're a brand new event, first event off the mark and all that sort of stuff. But, let's wait to see what happens. But for now, no, we pay our way with everything, and we're supported really well by the agglomeration. And we have other sponsors as well, Mercedes Saga have lent us a car for the year, and Boat Shed brokerage, they're running the back end of the website, which is saving us a lot of money. We spent about over $300,000 on the website so far, and the maintenance is important. And we've been saved by Boat Shed, so that's kind of cool. And we've got little supporting sponsors helping us in kind as well, which is critical. Well, there was a historical connection for a start. We're celebrating Sir Haley taking off on June the 14th. 50 years before, and we did that in Falmouth and then came back here. So we started 2 weeks after the event. My ideal planning in the very beginning, when I thought of the race, back in 2013, was to start 3 weeks after Sir Haley. I thought that's the ideal time because I knew Sir Haley was slow in the beginning. Sir Robin made a few tactical mistakes getting to Australia. So we arrived, the leaders arrived in the Southern Ocean basically 2 weeks before I intended them to be there from the original planning. So we're 2 weeks ahead of schedule once they enter into the Southern Ocean. And to me, that's not a big difference. The boats are slow. Forget about John Luke. Most of the boats will go around Cape Horn in December and January. That's right now. These boats now, the majority will go past Cape Horn in December and January. And that's still pretty good, you know. So contrary to what a lot of people think, yes, you could have started it later, that's fine, but we didn't want to because we wanted to stay the 50th anniversary. Is it dangerous? I maintain it's not. I've spent 3.5 years of my life sitting in the Southern Ocean doing something. I've been back and forwards across the Southern Ocean every summer for the 22 summers in the last 24 years. I follow the weather closely for the last 2 years, imagining the fleet sailing down there, on windy TY every same season. And yeah, it gets tough in this time of the year, but it's also tough in summer. And the big conversation has been brought about, first of all, Ari got rolled over and lost his rig. That happened in 35 knots and about 5 metre seas. And this storm that just knocked out Gregor and Tommy, I can tell you now, those exact same storms happen in summer, okay? They don't happen every day, all the way through. But so that storm has not got so much to do with winter as just the shape of that storm. If you looked at the storm that was further on the back end of the fleet, where I told all the fleet to go north and get away from it at the same time, that was a typical winter storm. It was massive, thousands of miles across, big southwesterly winds coming up, huge rollers and stuff, and you can still survive them because you can set your boat up. The one that knocked out Tommy and Gregor was this tight little horror show, So I'm quite comfortable to defend the time of the Vito Dumas went round the world in the middle of winter non-stop solo a long time ago in a little 32-footer. There's been plenty of boats across there in that time of the year. John Sanders in his triple circuit navigating went through in the middle of winter. So what? It comes down to the boat planning preparation. But the best boat and the best skipper can still come unstuck. And so our timing did have historical relevance. And I'll admit that they're moving faster than even I thought. But I'm still not worried. They're all capable boats, and you will get bad weather in the Southern Ocean anytime. We've kept them up high, above 42 degrees south, and you'll see in the next few days even, you look at windy TY, that's a good place to be. Everything's below that, so you can passage plan reasonable voyages. But there is risk, I accept that, and maybe it's better in summer, but it doesn't work for this event for now, right? Well, we're now, there's a complication. We're celebrating Bernard Tessia's voyage, okay? He set off on August the 22nd from Plymouth, all right? And so our initial planning was, okay, maybe we should start from Plymouth or somewhere, some other country, town, Portsmouth or Falmouth or wherever, we haven't decided yet, on August the 22nd to celebrate that start. And then we bring the fleet to Les Sables d'Olonne and we create the race village and we set off. And if we did all that timing, it means we would depart on September the 11th. And now I'm wondering that might be a bit late for the smaller boats. If we get a Captain Coconut setting out from here in September the 11th in 2022, he might not be back for a year, right? So we'll discuss this later on. There's a lot of issues here because we haven't finalised the host port for 2022, but my preference might be actually whatever port in France that we set off from to actually leave around about August the 22nd from that port. So the start may come forward a little bit. This guy is incredible. I mean, he's got a lot of experience. He knows what's required. He's nearly halfway around the world. His boat's in perfect condition. It's a really well-prepared boat, and if I was a sailor out there, I'd look closely at the way he's prepared his boat and the way he's set it up. And it's besides shortening the mast, everything that he's done on his boat, I would have done on my boat if I was there. I would have been in a Tradewind 35 because I think it's a comfortable boat, and he would have done exactly the same thing. To me, he's got all the right stuff. He's got furling gears. He's got mainsail control at the cockpit. He's got a hydrovane wind vane. He's done a lot of trial running, like trial sails to get everything right, no chafe on the rig, no chafe anywhere on deck. He's got a good layout down below. He's just done it right, and it's all working. And then he's got a lot of experience. It's his second home in the Southern Ocean, and it shows. And it also shows, I had a lot of people when I was supporting Jessica. Jessica's tiny, she's this tiny petite little girl, that was 15 when I met her and sailed off at 16. And people say, how can she do it? She's tiny. you don't have to be a brute. You know, it's smart sailing. It's not, you don't have to be a monster. You know, so, like America's Cup and all that sort of stuff. And Jean-Luc's now, I'm not saying he's not a big healthy guy, but he's not a young fella, and you know, he's doing well. You know, it's a really amazing achievement. So he's still got a long way to go, and he knows that. And he knows he's got to finish. You know, he's got to finish, and it's still a long way. Yeah, we're going forward to be there for a month, so we will probably get now we'll get Jean-Luc, we'll get Mark, we'll get Uku, we'll get Susie, and we may or may not get Tapio and Istvan. I'm not sure, but when I say then we've got to come back, and then we'll have others. You know, we'll have another person, you know, other parts there meeting the other guys when they come through, but. And the complication is Gregor will probably arrive now in Perth just as Jean-Luc's about to come, but we don't have budget to go over there anyway, so Handling Engineering, their sponsors, will handle that. You know. Probably longer. They have to stop for a minimum of 90 minutes. Jean-Luc's already said he'll probably have a sleep once he gets across. He'll do all the interviews and stuff, and then he'll check the rig. He's already climbed the rig once, but he'll check the mast it's on, and then he said he'll probably have a bit of a sleep for maybe 4 hours. Depending on the weather, and then he'll set sail again. So we'll be doing a lot of live Facebook when that's happening, and so on. So, and then Mark has also said when he stops, he's going to have a good check with the rig. He's got some halyard issues, so he may stop a little bit longer than 90 minutes. And the others, I think Uku will probably stop for a little bit more than 90 minutes. No one can touch them; they're still non-stop, unsupported, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I reckon some of them might stop for a little, you know, more than 90 minutes. Well, exactly the same as Bernard Matessier. This is the beauty of the Joshua class. It's again, people will be surprised when they look at the fine detail. It's a very simple, rugged, reliable boat. It's a beautiful boat, built incredibly well. But wind vanes, there's no commercial wind vanes allowed. It'll be a trim tab wind vane system on the trailing edge of the main rudder. Exactly the same as Bernard Matessier. We were going to try and relive as closely as we can his experience. And, you know, he himself said it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. So I would call it 80%. But he used that all the way around the world, and it was still working when he got back. So we'll do the same thing. The mast. Yeah, we had two options. We had Selden or we had Sparcraft. And at the moment, I think it's going to be a Sparcraft mast. That's the same builder as Jean-Luc. You know, he's built all of Jean-Luc's masts. I've had a good look at him, and it's very impressive. So we'll have to wait and see. I haven't decided yet. I'll wait for final pricing and bits and pieces, but I nailed it down to two, either Selden or Sparcraft, and I'm starting to maybe lean towards Sparcraft at the moment. Yeah. Well, it's a funny story. The very first set of sails I ever bought when I was 20 were Lee sails. And they've still got my original letter in their store, in their thing. It's a long story. Still, the same lady's still there. She remembers me and da-da-da-da. And for high-quality Dacron sails, you know, round-the-world type sails with all the stuff, value for money, wacko, you know. So, and everyone will have to use the same. When you read the detail of the One Design class, the whole idea is to keep it affordable and keep it exciting, you know, like the same as Matessier. And so that's the concept of the class. I mean, the interesting thing about Facebook is Facebook can ruin people's lives, you know. But in this particular instance, as a form of media, we can make ourselves look a lot bigger than we are purely because we can work Facebook and social media. And it's instant. It's fantastic. I mean, and I was saying that for a couple of years. People were saying to me, oh, how can you, and even sponsors, you know, like they're saying, oh, you know, they're going to sail over the horizon. You'll never see them again. And I was always saying that you know, the daily tweets and the weekly phone call and all the other elements of the GGR tracker, if someone wants to follow this race, I was confident there would be more than enough material. And I am getting repeated emails and repeated comments and messages that people are more involved with this race than any other round-the-world race they've seen in a long, long time. And it's very encouraging for us. You know, I think we've stumbled on a very interesting formula. I agree. And the other thing that I learned very quickly here was that sometimes you tend to hold back on your opinions because I'm no expert. You know, okay, I've done a few things, but your opinions are your personal opinions. And I saw very quickly that people want to know my opinions, whether they're right or wrong. You know, they want opinions, and so in the end, I said, "Rightio, you want it? Here it comes." I don't know whether you're going to like it or not, but I thought, okay, that's what people want. They want to know opinions, and they want and I've always, with all our expeditions, I've always adopted the simple formula that I am who I am, and I'll be brutally honest. You know, I'm not trying to hide anything, and you can't afford to do that anyway. So that's the way the GGR has evolved. You know.